It's June on Carnival of Randomness, you know. It's fair season, I guess, carnival season. I remember one time on the Hemlock Fair, my fair Ferris wheels forevermore. When I'm on the Ferris wheel, I'm near the top and something flies off it. And we're up there for hours, and I figure it's going to roll away. Well, that's how I feel with this cast of characters on the show today. So
going to roll away.
We have the immortal Greg, as always.
Hi, how you doing?
And he's a great guitar player, the maestro, the man himself, Dan Zea.
Hey, thank you very much for having me, man.
And
always fun.
Woo-hoo. Anything I could say with John would sound incriminating at this point after what we talked about, so John Adams. And unexpected, very welcome guest, and he might be wondering, why did I come down here after
Drop in guest.
Jerry Falzone.
Howdy.
His
agent made us take him.
So, Greg, I have to ask you to start off. We'll talk of many things, but to start off, is there some conspiracy now? Because bring up this topic Dan brought up. We're seeing all these drummers get sacked or leaving. Is this a conspiracy to hire you for more bands?
Yes. I believe so. My network is large. It's I have a lot of tentacles out there. No, I don't know.
What is going on with this, Dan?
The Who is looking for a drummer, Greg.
Well,
so are the Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters again?
Yeah, they just let go Josh Freese. The Who canned Zach Starkey. And it has been sort of ugly.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, have the Who found a substitute yet?
I believe they did. They went with the drummer from Roger Daltrey's solo band.
That was a play on a
was
tune.
that Simon Phillips? No.
I don't know who he is. I don't know if you guys followed that whole drama there with Zach Starkey.
I did.
In the Who on the it was they were posting it on their Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. Yeah, but
playing all night.
He's been there since the 1990s, man.
I saw them I saw them back in 2017, and they were still solid. They were there's a really good show.
Foo Fighters is a strange band. Those songs are hard to grasp. I find. I like them as a group, but boy, it's not your basic rock stuff.
No, some interesting arrangements from them. Yeah, you got to stay on top of whenever you got to play them. I like the Foo Fighters though. Question: You think those guys have cemented their, rock status as a legendary band?
Oh yeah,
been long enough.
Let's talk a little bit about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame here.
Oh yeah,
I personally despise the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What do you guys think of that?
It's got some goofy rules, and I think there's been a lot of flack that they get about that they don't give anybody hardly any tickets, and you're only allowed one guest, and it costs you $2,000 or something to go, or I don't know. And a lot of people are complaining that they're just inducting anybody that's selling records. You know what I mean? It used to be sort of about the pioneers of rock, and then it kind of just got into
musicians who'd left an impact.
Yeah,
right. It felt that way.
Jerry, you could speak on this well.
Yeah, because I'm pretty good with that stuff.
Yeah, because, you're never going to be able to please everyone.
Yeah, I'm on the board of directors for the Rochester Music Hall of Fame, and the problem that you run into, like with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, there's only so many pioneers from the beginning.
Right.
Essentially, they're all in. I mean, Chubby Checkers just got in for the Twist?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can call him a pioneer of rock and roll, but he's not Elvis, and
right.
he wasn't Smokey Robinson or
Let's talk about a different band, the Scorpions, my favorite band of all time. Have sold millions upon millions upon millions of records, have been playing literally live since 1965. That's 55 years, 60 years at this point. They've been playing live all over the world, and they are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
And neither is Little Feat, which is, to me, a travesty.
Unreal. It's just unreal.
But, I know the problem that we've got with the Rochester Music Hall of Fame, and I'm sure it's the same thing that they have with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, is that you've got a ceremony, an induction ceremony. You've got just so many people that you can induct in a year. And, we have a hard time keeping it down to a 3-hour show with 4 inductees a year. Can you imagine? That's just people that have a connection to Rochester. And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you've got people who have a connection to rock and roll.
It's not rock and roll, though. It's I mean, Nicki Minaj is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the Scorpions are not.
Yeah, that's a hard thing for me to swallow,
too. That is a travesty.
That's a hard thing for me to swallow. You know, a lot of the rap people that are in there, to me, it's a legitimate form of music. It's not rock and roll. But I understand that they think there's a kinship with it. But to me, they should have the Rap Music Hall of Fame and the Hip Hop Music Hall of Fame. And that's its own entity. You know, just like you wouldn't put David Sanborn in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it's like, why would you put somebody that's unrelated to rock and roll in it? So,
I mean, look how long it took Foreigner. It took all kinds of people going batshit for years to finally get them in.
That's not why they got in, though. They got in because Jan Wenner's no longer part of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, right. Well, there was that thing. I didn't quite understand what happened.
And even like, in a way, I would say music's subjective, and there was a big question somebody brought up one time. Somebody, and I don't want to get their name wrong because he's dead, but somebody from Rat died. And they pointed out that one Rat album sold more than the entire Ramones catalog.
It was Robin Crosby.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. Yeah. But like Paul Stanley would say, "Are we good? We sold 80 million albums." But I really don't go by that by own way because being a Tom Waits fan or anything. So it's really subjective in a way. How do you even grade stuff like that? You know. So
they have their criteria. I mean, 25 years. You had to be on the scene for so long, and this and that, and do certain things. So I mean, the pool is as small as they can get it, I guess. Yeah. And I forgot about that Jan Warner thing.
My view, too, it's like with the Rochester Music Hall.
It's politics. That's what it is.
But my view, like with the Rochester Music, just enjoy the freaking thing. If you don't like it, don't criticize. Don't be,
Right.
I mean, just, appreciate.
I'm going to say lots of bad stuff about Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Rob.
Well, you're talking about the regular Rock and Roll.
He's talking about the one in
That's
Cleveland.
fine.
No, I actually think it's an awesome thing that Rochester has its own Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I know Tony Gross. I'm supportive of it.
Well, it doesn't, It doesn't have its own Rock and Roll
There
Hall
he goes. He got me the first time you were on. I goofed that up.
Yeah, it's the Rochester Music Hall of Fame, so we cover everything. This year we inducted the RPO.
I just misspoke. Yes, I'm sorry.
No, when is Andy being inducted?
You spoiled it. He won't be here for 5 years.
Andy who?
No, but I did it when you were on last time. I goofed it up, too. I called it the Rock Hall of Fame. It's the Music Hall of Fame.
We've all grown up with rock music, so that's what we kind of think about. But, I wasn't on the board when the Rochester Music Hall of Fame was instituted. I came on about the 4th year. But, I had the same impression in my head, too, that, this is really cool. And the first induction class had Gene Cornish in it. The second one had Lou Gramm. And, you had a lot of rock and roll stuff going on. It had Joe English, which was Paul McCartney's drummer. But as it snowballed through the years, you kind of realize just what a deep community Rochester is. And one of the things I found that was really interesting is now that I don't live in Rochester anymore, you go outside of Rochester, people know our music scene all over the country. It's amazing how popular we are. But yet in Rochester, I got to say that 70% of the people who live here haven't got a clue as to what we've got culturally.
Oh, I know it's just from being in the scene. I know all that. But there's a good question to go on sort of about like drumming and everything. Now, the Who have seemed to have a big problem ever since Keith Moon died. And I don't think anybody could say they put out their best work. It's hard, funny enough. Pete Townsend, they all hated it, and they didn't want to release, but as Pete said, we spend all the bonus money. So, of course, now they have the Half-Speed Master because they want it's not a bad album, buy it. Mm-hmm. But when do you think you get to a point like with the band where you should just say, okay, if we want to play together, we'll do it as a different name or something, or how do you replace people? Like sometimes you just have to say, okay, it's done. Like the Beatles or something. Okay, he's leaving. We're going to get Eric Clapton.
Well, a lot of times I think producers have a hand in it. Hey, I know this guy. He worked with me on this band, and he's really good. And he knows the styles. And sometimes it's that way, and other times it's people from the band that know somebody, or fill-ins or whatever. There's lots of different ways.
Yeah. I mean, I said Rob Mount actually said this one thing to me about he saw Journey and Toto, and he said he thought they both were really good, and he's talking about Steve Perry. I guess unfortunately, he really just can't sing much anymore. And he said sometimes you just if somebody can't do it, you have to get somebody else.
Right. At some point, I mean, if you are successful enough, your company, your band, it becomes like a company, like a corporation.
You actually hit my point too.
It's an ongoing corporation.
Is it the person or is it the band? That's the thing. Well, you don't want to. You have to be like. But I like bands like Deep Purple who don't change members.
At least they give you cool names like Mach 4.
Look at Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Their original drummer now manages the band.
Right.
And there's no original members in that band at all that I know of. I don't think there's anybody in that band, but yet they're still out on the road as Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Who's the other band?
There's the Guess Who controversy where they couldn't use the name.
Well, Michael Stertow got caught up. Well, his tour got short because he was in the band when all this battle broke up last year, right?
Bachman and the singer.
Turner over.
What's his name again? I forgot.
Cummings.
Yeah, Burton Cummings. They're back on the road again, so they have the right to that name if they want to use it.
I just saw a live thing on YouTube. It was a really good concert.
Oh, Burton Cummings can still sing phenomenally well.
And they did a lot of the old weird, like, off the books songs, like that were on those early albums.
Oh, they were a great band.
So you remember, you were talking about Joe English. Remember him from the Jam Factory?
Oh yeah, that was a great
excellent band. And I remember getting that album when I was in high school.
You brought up a really good question. When should a band just say, okay, we're done? To me, and man, this is a really unpopular opinion. I swear to God,
I hate it already.
Very few people agree with me. Paul McCartney should have hung it up in '93. No, he was still good in '93. And I understand people love him and they love to go out and see him. He can't sing anymore.
So my own personal opinion, and I think sometimes we get caught up in nostalgia. I've been to some concerts where friends of mine are like, "Wow, they're great." I'm not going to mention the bands, but I'm going, are they watching the same show? Mm-hmm. But I saw that. Now, this is just me. Again, we're sharing our unpopular opinions. That Saturday Night Live performance Paul did, I was like cringing.
Yeah.
How long ago was that, roughly?
About a couple months, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Yeah, a month
ago. Yeah, the 50th anniversary show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I love McCartney. I love the Beatles. I love everything about those guys, and I love a lot of McCartney's solo career. But there gets to be a point where it's like, you're not doing it for the money, Paul. I mean, you're one of only 3 billionaires that made it in music on that level.
One of the other
he does make people happy.
Right?
He makes people happy. No.
Taylor?
No?
Taylor,
yeah,
maybe?
Taylor Swift and Jimmy Buffett, believe it or not.
Oh, because does it count like all his entrepreneurship maybe and everything?
Absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm. Taylor Swift is the only person who's made $1 billion strictly for music.
The bane of my existence, because we have
strictly for music. I was going to say there are some $1 billion net worth artists in hip hop. Jay-Z, I believe.
Yeah,
well, that's entrepreneurship,
but that's beyond music.
Well, McCartney made his first $1 billion. He had $800 million, and then Linda died, and she left him $200 million from her vegetarian frozen food business. So he was now a billionaire.
I've said Taylor's the bane of my existence. I tell this story all the time, but I'm still so sick of it. We share the same birthday, and I get so sick of being asked for, getting mistaken for her and getting asked for like
you do look exactly like Taylor, man.
Stop it! I am not Taylor.
Yeah. We all have our cross to bear.
Check by the hat. She doesn't wear the hat.
I guess I could put away my autograph pen.
I think with some of the older acts, like you say, it is nostalgia. And I think it's almost like a mortality thing. It's like, well, I want to see him before I can't, or before he's not around, or she's not around. So people do that. They're like, well, it's now or never. And those people know that, so they go out and they keep touring. They got fan base. They make money. They put asses in the seats. End of story.
I look at it too. Like if we're going to end the podcast before we went over the hill, we would have ended at episode 2.
Yeah.
But no, I saw Richard Thompson. Best concert I saw last year was Richard Thompson, and he's like 70s. Electric acoustic. He was fantastic. So why stop? I just have an idea. When to stop, when you just know, okay, I can't be. What was the thing with Joe DiMaggio when he retired? He still was okay. He's like, but I can't be Joe DiMaggio anymore. Robert Plant, smartest man maybe in vocals, just knows he can't hit the notes.
Knows what he can and can't do. I mean, I think there's 2 different points. I think from what you guys are talking about, when does a band? There comes a point where a band is so successful that they are an ongoing concern, a corporation that is bigger than the members of its parts. AC/DC, for example, right? And they can Keep going, but performing wise, I don't believe they're done yet. Creating wise, like putting out a new AC/DC album with new songs, who's really buying that, right? I mean, I think they're now crossed over. They're a legacy act. Nobody's looking for the next new AC/DC music.
That was like probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Right, I mean, occasionally they still do, but I'm always curious who's going out to buy it. Who's buying it?
How in the heck
I must
you
have
bob
been the
your
one.
head playing guitar that much and not get sick?
But it looks like they can still perform, right? I saw B.B. King several times in my life, thankfully, because, yeah. And I saw him well beyond his ability
So I
to
heard
perform.
one of my friends saw him, and guess he was, unfortunately, like with
wheeled out there
Alzheimer's.
in the wheelchair.
Yeah, I saw Link Ray like that, where he got dragged out by a belt.
Two of the best concerts I've ever gone to. I'm a Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young fan. Not as people by any means, but I love the music. You know, we're doing a celebration of their music on Friday, but as drug-addled and as messed up as David Crosby was, he got sober. I saw him at 73 and I think 76.
Wow.
Not in 1973, when he was 73 and 76, and it was the best I've ever heard him at both those shows. Absolutely stunning, and it wasn't just the old songs. He's got his last 4 albums that he did before he died, I think are the best 4 albums he's ever done.
Jeez,
he's ever been involved.
This brings up a great point, and I had this conversation with my son just yesterday, and nobody here probably knows it because we're not in, but my son is a raging alcoholic. He lives out west, and I was on the phone with him. He's been going to punk shows, right? And so things like the Bouncing Souls and Bad Religion. And we had this conversation. I mean, they're good bands. They're really good bands. I enjoy listening to the music. But the difference is he's listening at age 37 years old as a teenager to this music.
To angry music.
The angry music, the anti-authority music, that sort of thing. Yeah. And I said, you are taking the messages of these songs as an adult and processing them as a teenager and not understanding that they continue to play because it's a business for them.
Right.
The Sex Pistols with John Rotten, not John Rotten.
Right, exactly. So the bottom line is they have an audience that they can sell to.
Right.
And they continue to sell to that audience. And until you make the switch and you shift gears and you say, okay, is it better to be sex, drugs, and rock and roll, anti-authority, or is it better to be, I appreciate what I went through as a young person, and I love listening to that music, and I had this sentimental, nostalgic feeling about what that was when I was, say, 16 or 17 or 18 years old. But now I'm an adult, and I process it differently. Right? Mm-hmm. You don't go out there and say, fuck the world. You know, you go out there and you say, I love the world, I love that this is available, and all of these other things that I love are also available, right? We had that conversation yesterday, and he basically told me to fuck off, and because he's stuck in that teenage mentality, right? And I've reviewed, we were talking about core memories from our childhood just before we came on the air.
That'll be the next topic, too.
Right. But I've reviewed rock and roll a lot in my life. I'm a real anti-authority personally myself. But I also understand that sometimes you need to have an authority.
It's there, and it's going to be there, right?
It's not something you get away from.
Right.
Right? It's something that is omnipresent in life. And some of that authority is good, and some of that authority is very poor. But it's something we deal with, and it's also something that we understand that the world needs an authority in different things. An authority meaning knowledge and being able to lead people and being able to take a group of other people through a process to create something that requires an authority. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I would agree with that. It sounds like a little fine-tuning of some libertarian tendencies that you had a bit stronger in the past.
Well, and you know, Rob and I have had this conversation a lot, but I'm not a libertarian. And there's two real basic reasons. You know, libertarians believe in open borders. I do not believe in open borders. I have seen what's happened across the world, and there's societies that are literally being destroyed by open borders, and I don't think that would be good for America. And number two is there's the non-aggression principle, which means you should never use physical violence for somebody that's not threatening you personally or threatening one of your family or friends personally. And I personally believe that sometimes people just need to be fucking punched in the face.
Right. It's a deterrent.
You know what? I'll do the Reader's Digest.
I wouldn't do it anymore.
For everybody out there, go to In Living Color and watch the Homie the Clown. Live your life that way.
I don't think so.
Well, there's just been so much, they have rallies, and then next thing you know, stuff's getting set on fire. Okay, you can make your opinion known, but all that extra stuff is just not necessary. Yeah. Because then once you cross that line, then police have to come in, and then they get all more fired up because you got the mob thing working. Get them, and the next thing you know,
rules.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, you got anarchy everywhere, and it just nobody wants to respect the parameters of the law.
Punk. The idea of punk was DIY and self-reliance too.
Yeah. So I should be able to do this. No, you shouldn't.
Before we get too deep, we were talking about childhood memories. If you want to start what you were saying about childhood memories.
So Dan and I have known each other since 1982, and we were fast friends. Tell the story real fast. Dan was lost in an apartment complex, which, for a 12, 13-year-old youth just moving to the
moved in that day, yeah.
Every freaking apartment looked identical. And so it's very easy, and it's not like the numbers went in an order that you could follow them real well.
Right.
So it's real easy to get lost in that place, unless you've been through it a bunch of times. And I met Dan, I think I was on a bike or something, or he was on a bike, and he's like, I'm lost, I can't find my place. And I'm like, well, where do you live? And he told me, and I go, oh, that's up that way. And I took him over there, and we were good friends from that point on.
Point forward, yeah.
And I got to know his family real fast, right? And his mother... By the way, his mother shares our birthday, Rob. Mm-hmm. December 13th.
Nice.
Right?
She get recognized for Taylor?
So, becoming basically part of the kids that came over to Dan's place and hung out with him and his brothers. And I got to know Sophia, his mother, and she created a drink now Dan's from Nicaragua, and she created a drink that she had a recipe for from Nicaragua, and it was regular milk mixed with pineapples and some other things. So
sugar.
So that's probably what did it for me, right? Yeah. So I was like, I didn't want to drink that. That looks really fucking weird, right? and I was told it's really good. You got to try it. So I tried it, and I fell in love with this stuff.
More, please.
Every time I came over to Dan's place, I'd be like, I want some pineapple.
The creativity of my mother, really. I mean, she had 3 boys who hated to drink milk. We just hated. I, to this day, cannot stand milk. I don't know how people drink it. I mean, just a little bit in my cereal. But anyway, so that was what you came into, John, is that she had to come up with all sorts of creative ways to get us to drink down some milk. So whether it be carrots mixed with sugar and vanilla in a blender, you got the pineapple, it must have been, but it could have been anything, man. Mangoes, whatever. She just had to do that stuff to get us to drink any sort of milk.
That's one of my core memories growing up is I tasted this exotic drink that I fell in love with. And eventually I was drinking so much of it when I went over to their place that she had to tell Dan to tell me to stop drinking the pineapple milk.
But see, that opens you up to new things so that when you go someplace, you're not so afraid to try something.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves when I traveled, like when I was in the Soviet Union. What do we see? There's a line around the block for McDonald's. Can't you get that at home?
Yeah.
You can't.
In Helsinki,
they couldn't.
Helsinki Pizza Hut, which would cost you back like $120 American. Helsinki's a very expensive city.
Well, I've been thinking about that.
Why don't you try the real stuff?
I know. If you're going to eat in a foreign country. I mean, I've been thinking about that with McDonald's. Their whole thing is consistency and all that. And it's like, there are many things besides McDonald's. Well, it's good because it's always the same. Well, it's bad because it's always the same.
Watch the movie The Founder. You haven't seen the movie The Founder? It's perfect.
No, I haven't seen that yet.
But I was thinking about how the difference, for growing up, when I was growing up in Gates, I wouldn't meet you would meet Dan that way, but I met a couple of my best friends who walk around Gates. I went to go for my wallet, and I would shake hands with a future friend. It was a good old upbringing there. But I call it natural friendship. Sometimes you just somehow it just happens. Then there's others where you don't get along, and then all of a sudden you become really good friends later. So it's funny how life works. Do you have any? But I'll ask another question. I've been actually asking friends who traveled or are from another country. Was there something here like when you're here, there's some kind of food you really like there that you just can't get the same. It's not the same here.
Italian food in Italy
is different.
It's amazing.
Yes.
And the other thing you can't get here that you get in Italy are dead bodies in Catholic churches. It's amazing.
That's right.
Yeah. I've actually got a picture in my phone now of St. Catherine's head on an altar in Siena.
Wow.
It just blows me away what I got to see when I was over there. I saw
part of the Catholic Church, when they create a church, there has to be an artifact from a saint in that church.
And so some of them actually put the whole saint in there. I saw St. Clair's body. I saw some bishop's body. I saw St. Catherine's severed head. I saw a box that said, John the Baptist's hand that baptized Jesus used to be in here.
Wow.
And my brother, who's been to Italy a lot, told me that he has gone in 7 different churches that had the right arm of John the Baptist. So
wow.
So it's
was he a mutant like X-Men?
Like, like a whole line of them.
Well, I mean, it's like having an artifact from the Revolutionary War. This is a gun from a bullet or a sword or.
Here's a head.
But religion's a big deal over there, so it's a big cultural thing.
Yeah. How about a new pope?
How does anybody think about being American? Is it going to be a McDonald's and a Costco in the Vatican soon?
We have an American pope. How about that? That's big news.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
I admit, like, for me, it's like, who's the new Doctor Who and who's the new Pope?
Right.
He's from Chicago. Apparently, he's a White Sox fan.
The only problem with him for around here is, like, I get, Spaceballs. May the Schwartz be with you. Greg Prevost, my old friend from the Chesterfield Kings, is already hearing the Prevost jokes about the Pope.
Yeah. Boy. I don't know if you heard the first proclamation from the new Pope. Did anybody heard of that?
No.
Yeah, New York City pizza is now a sin.
Deep dish.
Whoa.
That is deep dish.
Thanks, he's not here long.
That's it. I mean, it's interesting how it'll be interesting to see. It's amazing. It's something.
Well, I mean, think about how weird that is your entire life. I mean, and I am, see, my parents' Catholicism lapsed before mine got finalized. So I was baptized, but then by no confirmation or anything like that. So I'm Catholic light, I guess you would call it, right? But it's one of those things you've always known who the Pope is, and the fact that when they're going to speak, it's in a broken English at best. It's a foreign language. This is strange that the dude is now one of us.
Right.
I would have never expected it.
Apparently the guy used to play that he was a priest as a child, and then that never changed.
Yeah.
I mean, that is it's like a real calling for somebody.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
But I think there's the myth, that meme about being a jazz musician or something. I've heard that's fake. Is it or not? I don't know.
About him being
like he played at some club. He's like a jazz musician.
Andy taught him.
Well, anytime that I play the wrong notes and I just pretend like I meant to do it, I'm a jazz musician.
Holy infallibility. Anyway,
so I've been a recovering Catholic now for about 50 years.
I know, same here.
And but I really like the last Pope that we had.
Yeah,
he was pretty progressive, and I think this guy's going to be really interesting to watch.
I'm unique. I look at something from a different angle. For like the Pope's usually pretty old. John Paul II was fairly young, but it's amazing how they can do all. This is like same with musicians to me, like touring. How these guys could travel all over at that age and everything. It's amazing.
It brings up a great point.
Got an armored
aging,
car,
right?
You got to travel though, the plane and stuff.
It's no problem. So when we get older and we age, sometimes things become more difficult. And I've seen that in different ways in different people's lives. And I saw Alice Cooper years ago. I may have talked about this before on this show, but it was the 3rd time or 4th time I'd seen Alice Cooper, and he's getting older. Right. And the first 3 songs that he played, it was like I was watching a robot go through a real stodgy performance. And then something happened where it was like shifting gears hard from 1st to 4th. In the 4th song, all of a sudden, I was like watching a guy from the 70s perform.
Yeah, he warmed up.
he warmed up, and he found his groove, and he started playing. And when I see things like that, I think it's absolutely amazing that you go through this process, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're back to where you were when you were creating the music.
Right. Yeah,
it's
that's
a really
interesting.
wild
I've
thing
never
to watch.
realized that. Yeah.
Well, it's freaky. I'm thinking, like, where did the years go? You know, it's like the thing all of a sudden with this age, stuff like that.
Well, music has a funny way of, it ostracizes people and then brings them back. You know, the 80s glam stuff, the 90s crushed it. Now it's kind of making a comeback. Things change. The decades change. People discover this old classic music and they're, oh, wow, this is great. Or their parents, you know, they go through their parents' records, and next thing you know, word of mouth. It has like an organic thing. It has a life of its own.
I'm predicting,
it changes things.
If you want to use it, polka and yodeling is going to be next.
It's coming. It might already be hot already somewhere.
But I wanted to ask like our musicians here, and like sort of something I'm just starting to get into, and I know very little about it. The idea of gear and like what you're playing with, and how it matters, and how the sounds change depending what you use, and when you want to go for
how it
sound.
makes you play. Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to be 55 in just a couple of weeks. I'm 6 months after you, June 13th. You two guys, right? So at this point, I've kind of amassed a little bit of a collection of instruments, and they are each very different. Even two Stratocasters can be very different. I have had the experience where I'm playing something in a store, and it's just so connecting with me that I got to walk out with it, you know, and you're like, yeah, this is just a great guitar. Songs get written. You know, I'm a songwriter. I've recorded stuff over the years. And some of that stuff gets written because I'm playing this particular guitar. I would never come up with that riff or that style or something on another guitar. So, yeah, they kind of impact you that way. It's kind of strange, right?
I was at Northfield Music, and I sat down. He had a baritone guitar there, and I didn't even know it was a baritone when I picked up, and I went, wow, that's really cool. And I started writing a song, and I went, damn it, I got to buy it now.
Got to buy it now, right? Yeah.
So I bought it, and I don't use it for anything except for that one song, and it's like, now I got to sell it.
Yeah.
Because the song wasn't that good to begin with. So.
Yeah, once it's recorded, I can actually let go and
sell
them.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
For sale, guitar for sale, helped write it, okay song.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have a huge collection. I think I've got, including the baritone, probably 8 or 9 guitars. But they're all there for a very specific reason. I've got a Rickenbacker 12-string 360 because there's songs that I write that really fits with. I've got a Gretsch White Falcon because there's songs that really fits with. I had the weirdest thing happen to me. I've got a Telecaster, a Mexican Telecaster, and I brought it up here to play, but I had to keep it in a van for a few hours in the middle of winter. And when I went to rehearse with my band up here, it just wouldn't stay in tune, so my guitar player let me borrow his Nash Telecaster. We did. It's a great guitar. So we finally did the gig.
You're killing Dan over here, just so you know.
Have you ever played a Nash?
I've owned several in my life.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
I still do.
So we were playing, and this is, I really don't even want to tell people this, but it was just the weirdest thing. What I had to do when I moved to Florida was I had Kevin Higgins take my place with Liar's Moon, and then when I would come up, I would do one set with the band, and he would do the other set. So Mark, my guitar player, let me take the Nash Telecaster because he said it sounds better than your Telecaster. So we're done with my set, and he said, take that home with you. I said, what for? He goes, it's yours. And it was a gift.
Wow.
And I got really angry about it until he told me at the end of his set with the other band, he said, look, I would not be playing up here if it wasn't for you. He said, I can afford it, and it would make me feel really good to give it to you. Don't blow my night. And it's like it's a guitar I will never get rid of. It's
wow.
my
See, that's just
possession.
such meaning and everything.
Yeah, it has more meaning than anything I've ever had as a guitar, and it sounds great. But the problem I've got now is I keep that guitar up here because I can't play a gig without it, or Mark will kill me.
Yeah.
Do you keep it like one of those dead saints, like in a glass?
Yeah.
Well, I know.
No,
I mean,
it's just the head.
Just the headstock. I have several drum sets, but like if I'm playing a harder rock, like when I play with Cupid's Boomerang, I got to have a set that projects because I got a crazy guitar player next to me that's loud, So I got to have stuff that pushes. I got to have a snare drum that really rings out. But like the other night, I played at Murph's with Brian Lindsay band, and that guy's always, keep it down, keep it down. So I used a smaller bass drum. It's tight, very tight, punchy sound. I had the drums, smaller drum set, smaller toms, and it fits the room. Sometimes you just got to play to the room. Mm-hmm. You got to not bring an extra cabinet or not bring certain things, and you just have to sort of that's how you amass so much stuff, because you start playing a lot. Next thing, I need this for that. Oh, now I don't need it, but I need this. And next thing you know, you're buying all this extra stuff. Oh, I need a crash cymbal. I need a upside down pang cymbal for I'm playing more funk, or whatever. So that's what happens.
You never know when you're going to go to a bar and it's like, we're waiting for the good old boys. We listen to two types of music, country. One question I've been wanting to ask you about music, Greg, in terms of sticks, because I know the case of John Bonham.
I use them all the time.
Trees. Heavy though, but does the size, the weight of them matter to you? Or we just grab a pair and use it. How does it make the sound sound?
Well, I tend to like a round bead, the top part, so because they seem to dance off the cymbals nicely, and it gives you more attack. It's a more focused attack to me than the pointed types, but they're both good. But I've played some sticks that I thought, I'll try these, but the weight's just off, the balance is it's like action on a guitar or whatever. You know what I mean? Every instrument has its thing.
The slightest little thing, pick width for me. I like a thick pick. Well, that's what she said. I mean,
we're talking about off camera here.
A 1 millimeter,
Jerry's looking like, don't go there, don't go there.
Yeah, I like a 1 millimeter triangular pick, because I kind of hold it loosely and it just rolls, right around, because I kind of hybrid.
Yeah, John, how's that going selling your bathwater as soap?
Oh, wow, yeah.
But there's one, Greg Townsend told me this story where he has a 1971 Silvertone, and he said, flying in this old guitar, he'd be playing going, just the dampness here is getting to it and everything. They're almost like a pet.
Yeah. No, and also amplifiers can be a very special thing that you can develop a connection with. They just, I don't know how it happens, but, I have now a special B-side amplifier, Greg, because it's such a small stage, a 110-inch. If I play through a Fender Pro, he is right. You amass those kind of things because of the need, but yeah.
I always like to ask questions when we have musicians on, really good musicians, where this is such a crazy life, and a lot of times you're not going to make a lot of money. It's going to be a lot of road, frustration. What dragged you into doing this and said, this is like a passion I have to do?
Women.
Did you ever see the meme, though, about the bass player? It's like the drummer. Reality.
Yeah.
I remember, I'm old enough to remember seeing the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and I was really into classical music before that. I was like 11 years old, 10 or 11 years old, but I remember after seeing them, my mother asked me to come down to watch them because she said, they're hilarious. I didn't know any better. My mother thought they were funny. They were funny. I went back upstairs and watched Davy Crockett. But the next day, when I went to school, all the girls in school were screaming and giggling, and it's like I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but this thing went off my head like there's something in this rock and roll business.
You knew what you wanted to do.
Yeah, so I started playing. But, it's funny because I was on the road for just about 10 years. And when I got off the road, I thought, I'm going to miss, the people I meet, the places I got to go, all this stuff. And it turned out that the only thing I missed was making music. And I realized I could do that in Rochester just as well as I could do it, on the road. And I've never stopped.
That's great.
I just turned 72. I have never stopped playing music, and I'm playing it down in Florida now.
Well, I have a story about playing music, how I got into it. My first band was with Dan. That was my only band. That was back in 1983 or 4.
The Psychotics.
Right, the Psychotics, right. And I played bass in that band. My mother went out and bought a $40 bass that she found at the garage sale. No name brand. It wasn't even a name on it that I remember. And the thing was a little bit loose, so trying to keep it in tune was nearly impossible, and I did not have the ear for it anyway. So I had to go out and get an electronic tuner and didn't really understand how to use that. So we were practicing for this gig that we had at the Scottsville Fun Days, our big event.
Our fireman's weekend, yeah.
That's right. So our big event, and I got to know that bass pretty well, but I only got to know like 3 progressions for 15 songs we were going to play.
Ramones,
Bon Jovi, Iron Maiden, and then Louis' sappy thing. So, but I didn't know the progression for that, right? So the bottom line is that I'm up on stage. It's raining outside of the tent, and it was wet inside of the tent for several feet because it was coming in at an angle. And at one point, I jumped off the stage and immediately started getting electrocuted.
Oh, very cool.
So I'm like, and you hear it through the freaking amp, right? So I'm like, oh, shit. Jump back up on stage. The electrocution stops. I recover myself for about 20 seconds of no bass, and everybody's looking at me like, what the hell's going on? And
provided the pyrotechnics.
Just like we rehearsed it.
That was the last gig I played.
When I got out of college, I was not a good bass player. I was a bad bass. I was just really learning the instrument. And I got involved in a band that was, when I first joined, they were good, better than me, but the band started to progress, and they got all these new players, and they got these phenomenal players in the band. And it was eventually time for me to be fired. And the trombone player in the band, because it had really nice, at that point, 4-piece horn section, was the one who had to fire me. He turned out to be one of my absolute best friends. He ended up, I stole him away when I put Pearl together. But the reason that he gave me that they were firing me, besides the fact that I wasn't good enough to play with them, was the fact that every single one of those guys in the band said, when we're in our 30s, we're going to still be playing, but Jerry won't be. None of them are playing now.
Right.
None of them. And I'm 72, and I'm still playing.
You know what that is? That's like the story that happened to me, too, one time in high school, where one of my teachers, I was doing my usual mischief, said I was not going to make it or whatever, and I was the only one who got like a 5 on the AP and went on. It's like always like you hear those stories about, like I know like a couple of DJs around here, they were told, you're never going to make it on the radio. They're the ones who made it. Well, the other people aren't, so always believe in yourself like that, because you can't be anybody else.
Well, I think for me it was in the high school era, because, Jerry and I, and Andy here, we all went to school together, same place, and we had a band. I played at one of the school dances, so I had big affirmation from that. So the wedgies stopped thereafter. But that being said, but it was the only thing that I really stuck with.
Yeah.
And my father realized that. Okay, you want drums? Okay, because I honed in on it. You zero in on it, and the parents love that. So okay, we're off. And that was.
I mean, there's no question the adulation. If you have early adulation, it hooks you up. I mean, so John is describing our very first gig. It was so it was raining, so it forced people to get in there just to be dry. So we're playing to a packed tent.
It was packed.
It was the beer tent. So all these adults are watching these 8th, 9th graders, doing their thing. And we think they're loving us because we're rocking. I do anyway.
I mean, when I watch any of these shows on Netflix type things, and they show a garage band or like these beginning type bands, and they've all got nice stuff, and and I'm like, oh please, whoever's doing their set design doesn't know shit about set design, they present it unrealistic to me, That's why I don't watch a lot of rock and roll movies, because to me it's just
I hate them.
Right.
They don't show you the real deal. It's too glamorized.
Yeah.
No, and they always got to go, we rose up, now we got all the problems, we fall, we rise up.
Right.
We rise up, we fall, we do all the other things.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point, that it's glamorized, and there's this image that is projected over time for rock and rollers or musicians in general. And what I have personally found is a lot of times when I fall in love with a band, from when they're young, the music that they were playing when they were young, they're sleeping in tents or in a van or in a car. Their guitars in the back seat or their drum kits in the trunk of the car, and they're going from gig to gig, getting just enough money to buy gas and food to go to the next gig.
Right.
It's a really harsh reality for a band that's on the road in that way, and they have some really weird experiences, right?
Yep.
And of course they write from their experiences, and it's a real raw thing, and I've always loved that real genuine thing. And then they become successful. Money is thrown at them like there's no tomorrow.
Right.
They have everything they want: cheap drugs, the chicks, the resorts, anything they want. They can buy houses that are $12 million, and the music changes. Have you seen that?
Absolutely. I think you're describing Guns N' Roses is the biggest example of that. I mean, their first album you could hear.
Those guys were street rats.
Yeah, and then they could have had much more prolific output over the years, over the decades, because then the money hit, the excesses hit. Really nothing from after Appetite for Destruction. Is there anything awesome from Guns N' Roses? November Rain, maybe is really. I mean, legendary.
I mean, right? I think Here's Your Illusion. One sounds it has some Exile on Main Street songs. Like that's my opinion. Yeah. One of my views was like this is like strange pet peeve like about Rod's story. Rod, I don't believe you when you're singing about problems about getting women.
Yeah, right.
But think about it. I mean, this isn't a criticism of bands. We all put on guises and acts. We're all playing characters. But like with the Beatles, obviously, these are like tough Liverpool guys who Brian Epstein made into these sweet little. Right. You know, the Stones were these posh London art students who they made into tough. So a lot of its image, and that's just part of the act. You know,
it is. Wow. You're talking about being, the hardships you go on the road or the things you see. I mean, I spent a lot of time on the road, and I spent, and it was in a rock band. It was a really driving rock band. But the things that one of the things I remember really clearly is driving through the South, and we decided we didn't want to take 95 down. We wanted to see the real South and go, in all these back roads. And so we were doing that, and you see these houses that are built on stilts with chicken wire around it and all that stuff. But we were driving down this one road, and there was this like white clapboard little grocery store. Now this is back probably in the late 70s. So, I hope it's different because now I live down in Florida, so it's a southern thing. But there was, I was driving the van, and the guy that I stole from the other band that I was talking about before, Jerry McGill, was sitting next to me, and we had the other guy sleeping in the back. And we're driving, and I see something outside the road from the corner of my eye, and I keep driving, and Jerry goes, "Did you see what I saw?" And I went, "Oh shit, yeah, I did." Stopped the van, turned around, there was a dead black kid on the side of the road with a bicycle. He was probably 12 years old.
Wow.
And he was hit, and whoever hit him just left. And so we got out, and I went to this, to this little store, and it was a white guy that was running the store. And I go to knock on the door. Now, again, I was probably in Alabama or Mississippi, one of those states. I have really long hair. I go to knock on the door because he had locked the door. And he was right in front of the window at the door, and he knocked the blind down so that I couldn't even see him. So we have no idea what to do. And I kind of went nuts a little bit. I'm banging on the door, and I'm kicking it. Finally realized I'm getting nowhere with this, so I went back to where the body was. And on the side of the road was this huge forest. And all of a sudden, there's like, I hope it's not just my imagination thinking this, but about 50 black men came out. And now we're thinking, oh, we're screwed. But the one came up to me. I said, "Look, I was driving. We saw this. We're trying to figure out what to do." And he goes, "We know exactly what you didn't do. Don't worry about it. Just get the hell out of here right now." So, it's just the weirdest thing to do that. And, you're right. You go through different experiences when you're on the road. I mean, there's great experiences too. But, I got caught with counterfeit money that we got paid from a club up in Montreal because we demanded to be paid in American money.
Wow.
Because, we were really popular in that city and did really well, and the money looked like it was really good until it came out as Canadian. So, there's all these things that will happen. I had a gun pulled on me by a club owner once because I said, "Hey, you shortchanged us $1,000. And he said, "Oh, let me check the contract." And he pulls out a gun. And I'm going, "No, I think you were right." And then the union did nothing about it. So there are all these things like that can happen when you're on the road. It's a weird lifestyle.
I always say travel, learn about different cultures and different places. And
it's a great thing to do because you're right. You will learn about different things, but then you're going to learn about that kind of thing. And
I had one, and I do not think to this day, this is not the kind of person who would prank me. I had a good friend of mine. He's an Islander, from the Caribbean Islander, and we just drove. He's in Atlanta. So now we're driving back here, the car at night, late at night, and I'm sleeping. And he said, it's like maybe 3, 4 in the morning. A police car followed him and followed him and followed him. Finally pulled him over. Wasn't doing anything wrong. And pretty much rolled the window down. We don't want your kind in here driving. What are you doing here? The whole thing. I'm sleeping the whole time through this. So, you know, and I saw the KKK at Atlanta's airport when I was going to Jamaica. You know, so I always think, you know, things got to keep getting better, but you see this stuff.
Well, people forget about that whole 60s long hair. Is that a girl or a guy? Ha, ha, ha. You know, people forget about all that stuff that was prevalent.
If you don't think they're going to beat you up, smart-ass, but tell them, well, look at Victorian photos. Long hair went out because of World War I, because of lice. That's why they cut the hair.
Right,
it was
right.
I had my dad's barber who was like, oh, I see you brought my favorite daughter again. Like, one of those crew cut. Imagine one of those crew cut guys from the 50s.
Well, I think a lot of mistakes people make, too. This is just my opinion, but when you're going to go to another state, or especially another country or culture, don't apply our rules to it. Okay, we're growing up here. Okay, go somewhere and observe.
Yeah, you end up in prison.
Observe, see what they do, embrace what they do, and go with it, and try to assimilate. Because we're asking other people to do that here when they come here. Well, you don't act like you're not.
Yeah, never tell anybody when you go over to another country that we say thank you, they say fuck you. So they say fuck you every time they but you know that. But no, that you got to experience and grow. That's how you learn and you become wise and living. You got to live.
Right. I enjoyed traveling to Europe. I learned a lot about that stuff. I mean, a 3-month tour and I did a lot of southern Florida stuff and Miami and just. You get to see, you come back here and you sort of start to realize, man, people don't have a clue as to how to do a band here. Yeah. Or how to actually do a business part of music, And then when you try to tell them, well, I've been there. I'm not trying to tell you suck. I'm trying to tell you how to make it better.
I was in Italy in January with my brother, who's very, very experienced in Italy. This was his 21st time there, and when he goes there, he's there for 6 weeks. So he knows this area, and he knows a lot of people. So it's really interesting to meet people on that level. And I met this one artist named Jalal in Assisi, and after about maybe 10 minutes, he realized, okay, you're okay. I can talk to you about this stuff too. And he was, a painter, and so he had this really big painting in front of, on the wall. And so he said, come over here, and he pulled the painting away, and there was a door there, and it led down into a dungeon. And I'm going, well,
do you
why
want
did
to
you
go
tell
down?
me this? You want me to go down there? And he said, no, I want you to know what Europe used to be like. And he said, during World War II, the Germans occupied Assisi, and there were a lot of Jews in Assisi, and what they would do with as many as they could, they'd give them, priest outfits and nun outfits, so that they would look like they weren't Jewish. But the families that they couldn't do that with, when they knew the Germans were going to be back, they would bring them into this studio this guy had. They would put him down in this dungeon and just wait for the Germans to get past there. So, you look at that, we certainly have had our problems with racism in this country. There's no question about it. But we haven't systematically annihilated 6 million people.
Right.
We haven't done that. And to realize that these are people that are really in our era, essentially, within 100 years of our lifetime, that were capable of doing that, and to see that by being in that area and seeing a remnant of what it was like to be like that, it's an amazing thing to see.
I will say that we have eradicated 6 million and many, many, many more than that in the U.S.
Well,
when you talk about the native tribes
you're right.
that were here, and we colonized, the Europeans colonized the U.S. And here's the reality. That has happened in every single geographic region across the world.
And it's happening right now.
It just continues to happen.
Well, that was like Spain's MO back in the day, and all those countries that go in, take over, kill everybody. It's ours now.
This has been such a great conversation. I wish we could do this for 5 hours, but we really, time is
more death and destruction.
Again, I want to sort of end before you guys say what. Thank you for being on too, Jerry.
Jerry, thanks.
Nobody expects people to pop into the Carnival at random.
Okay, your agent owes me a favor now.
Well, it was random.
But Dan, one thing I want you to reflect on coming here from Nicaragua. What is your thoughts on the country?
Oh, I'm the biggest fan, man. I'm the biggest American you ever know. In all honesty, it's because it was acquired. I witnessed the decline and degradation. In 1979, when the revolution hit, what it looked like to me in my 9 years old was war outside my door, explosions, death, a breakdown in order. Suddenly people weren't working, school got stopped, and you just knew that things were post-apocalyptic, really.
Chaos.
There were injured people coming up to the door begging for help, stores being looted. I also recall the feeling, the emotion of it being a 9-year-old kid, and you know what's going on because you see it in the news, and you know that it's, the Sandinistas are revolting and bringing down the government, and you trying to understand, are we pro-Somoza government? Are we pro the revolutionaries? And I remember getting the feeling that we should be a little bit pro-revolutionary, but my family was benefiting from the status quo. My dad was a working engineer, middle-class family, which was a rare thing. I didn't understand that. There was probably 2% of us in Nicaragua at the time. So, I saw all that break down. So I lived a middle-class existence, saw it break down. I did not know racism. I did not know that feeling. I did not know it, right, as against me. Then we came to the United States in 1979. It didn't take very long to feel that in Chicago. So you knew things had changed, right? But, get to Chicago, our clothes were things that a local group of people in a church had gotten together. So you got some early photographs of me in these matched clothes at 9 years old, which are a symbol of the very humble beginning of what it looks like to have to start all over again, right? And my dad had been, an engineer, middle class, and now the best job that he could get, we're buying a 1970 Mustang that would break down every, so I'm like, things have changed dramatically, and yet I went to law school. My kids graduated from elite colleges a generation later. There's no one who believes in the American dream more than me. Absolutely no one.
While you're doing this, I'm feeling embarrassed, crying because I didn't get one Christmas present here, But like when I was in the Soviet Union, I literally wanted to do a Katy Perry and kiss the ground.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we don't have time to talk about the Sydney Sweeney soap. I'm sorry, John.
Oh, that's all right. Well, I will. That was a pretty serious conversation, and I've heard that story several times.
If you want to hear what we talked about before, subscribe to our fan club for only $50,000. We'll tell you all these things we talked about. But for you three,
I subscribe.
Thanks for being on. These are some great musicians. You're not going to you see. There's Greg. He plays with everybody. But what's going up for everybody?
Okay, you go first, Greg.
We can just go this day, this day, this day.
Well, okay. Well, today I have this wedding thing I have to do. And then, let's see, I got the Record Archive with the Brian Lindsay Band on June 4th, Wednesday. And I can't remember. I have
Lindsay's playing at Marge's on the 4th of July, I think.
I'm playing at Abilene around then, too. That whole
Cupid's
first week of
Boomerang
July.
at Abilene?
Cupid's Boomerang is playing soon.
Skylark
I kind of can't.
Skylark,
yeah, but I can't.
Why am I telling you your schedule?
I can't. Well, because I can't.
You're not playing at that one. You're not playing.
I can't be at that one. They had to get a
today.
sub for that one. I can't do that one. I have the archive. I'm playing with Keys to the Caddy at the Beachcomber on the 7th with Tony Infantino and those guys.
Canisius Lake?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an excellent venue, man.
Yep. I got Brian Lindsay on the 20th at the B-side, and the 28th I've got this band I play with, the Handle Vandals at Love and Cup.
Never.
June.
Everybody out listening, children, do not do where is Greg playing drinking game. You will be in big trouble.
Yeah.
But you too?
Yeah, the Thigh Masters down on Cuca Lake at Abandoned Brewery on June 14th at the 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Then we'll be on the Colonial Bell going up and down the Erie Canal on June 20th. You guys did that last year, right?
Yeah, we're doing it again. Yeah,
you're doing it again. It's a pretty cool gig. Fairport Brewing Company, July 25th, right outdoors, right on the corner there, and part of the Steel Rail Festival to the next day. So don't forget that in Fairport.
If the building's abandoned, you're up.
Yeah, one, but it's a good one. So we're doing the Deja Vu all over again celebration for Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. That's why I'm up here on Friday at the theater at Innovation Square.
Oh, no kidding. That's right. It's original. That's an awesome place.
Yeah.
And
it's weird because I'm a songwriter. I just don't do cover material at all anymore. I do it for that one, and I do it for one other one that we put together. But I love producing those shows. They're just they're a riot to do. They go over very well. And I get to play with people like Rob Smith and Brian Ayers.
Oh, Rob's great. Yeah.
This time, Jeff Costco is going to be with us. Ray Belizia. I mean, Liar's Moon is in the back line.
And then I'm doing one with you, right?
Yep, and then, we're... he's going to be playing with Liar's Moon. Greg is going to be playing with Liar's Moon on...
Cornhill.
At Cornhill, on the Sunday at Cornhill. And then I come back for that, and then that may be the end of it for me coming up here for what I'm looking.
We're very lucky we got you to stop in here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep coming up here because my daughter lives here, but I'm not sure how much more I'll be playing.
Well, you're always welcome here.
No, the thing is, like, okay, this would be like for Dan next time, but like cover music, live, it's all good in its own way. Go out and enjoy, but please give the original music a try, okay?
Please. Well, I can tell you without question that Rochester songwriters can thrive in this market. There's no doubt about it. You can work here, you can develop an audience here. You can't do that where I'm living in Florida. Believe it or not, that's impossible. But I'm going to do it anyway.
Nice.
Watch out for those evasive pythons.
Well, I'll tell you, to that point, I don't have a band, and I don't have any gigs coming up, so I'm fixing my house. Real exciting. But to the invasive python comment that you just made and core memories, Dan said he's the biggest American you'll ever meet. He wasn't talking about his spirit for America. It was about his trouser snake.
And, okay, the next time when we... the only thing is now, you're very, very blessed. We're going to have a jam section.
All right.
I don't know. I'm going to try...
Just a sock.
Hey, could you maybe do a song by the Wood Brothers?
I would do a song by the Woods Brothers. How about I Got Loaded? What do you think?
Let's
give it a roll.
The song about me and John in our camera these days.
All right,
yeah. Great one. See ya.
Southway.
That was fun.
On a bottle of gin.